Why is it that the streamers you watch, their aim looks like this?
Hold up. Wait a minute.
But your aim tells another story. Well, if you're looking to make some serious improvements on your aim, then you came to the right place. But first, we need to cover our settings, because if we have these wrong, then you're just gonna be set up to fail. Now, this video is gonna be focused more on controller players, but if you're a mouse and keyboard player, feel free to skip past the settings or go to my mouse and key dedicated settings video first. So Call of Duty recently completely changed their sensitivity scale. It used to be a 1 to 20 scale, but now it goes from 0.1 to 4. And the reason behind this is it's technically gonna give you a little bit more control. However, I'm not sure why they didn't just add decimals between the 1 to 20 scale. So if you've played Call of Duty before, a really useful chart is here made by Hexsmith on X, and this is going to show the differences from MW3 to BO6 because the sensitivities don't line up between those games. Basically, the sensitivity in Black Ops 6 is a little bit slower than what it was in MW3, or 1 point slower based on the 1 to 20 scale. So if you played 6.6 in MW3 or older Call of Duties, you're going to be 7.7 in Black Ops 6 for it to match, which would now be 1.6 on the new scale. If you're absolutely clueless on where to start, the vast majority of players tend to be between 6.6 and 8.8, or what is now 1.6 and 1.9. And if you're just like, just tell me where to start, I would say 1.6 is a fantastic starting place. I wouldn't really recommend going much lower than 1.4, as it's just going to be too slow and you'll struggle to keep up with people at close range. And I really wouldn't recommend going above 2.1, or what used to be is 1010. Now, of course, there is an exception to this, and there are a handful of players that play very, very fast sensitivity. But my guess is if you're clicking on this video because you feel like you need to improve your aim, you're not one of those people, and you're going to benefit from staying in my recommended 1.6 to 1.9. Also, if you decide to change your sensitivity, just be sure to give yourself at least a few days to ideally a few weeks before changing again, so you can give yourself a chance to adapt and actually learn that new sense. And also, changing your sense is not going to be the magical answer that makes you go from a noob to a pro. That we're going to cover a little bit later.
Holy fuck, this motherfucker just smoked me.
Yeah, I did. Our ADS sensitivity in multiplayer is also very important, and most people in general tend to be between about 0.7 to 1, at least when we look at the top level players. I sit in the middle here at 0.85, and this simply means that when I'm aiming my gun, my sensitivity is 85% compared to the speed of my hip fire. And this just allows me to be a little bit more precise and accurate when I have to hit longer shots. Now, if you're clueless again on where to start with this, here's a really crude test we can do to find our sensitivity. Pick a random target. So I'm going to use this brick pillar right here, and starting with a hip fire sense, go off to the side and try to flick and stop your aim on it. See where you end up. If you are consistently ending way short like this, you would need to increase your sense. If you consistently flick way past, you might want to consider lowering it, but do it a few times and see what you do kind of on average. We can then apply that same thing with our ADS sense. Go off to the side, try to flick and stop our aim and see where you end up. If you go way past versus under, adjust from there. The next most important setting for aim is going to be our aim response curve type, which is under the aiming advanced settings. Now again, there's not a 100% you have to use this setting, but probably 95% plus of all the top players are running on the dynamic aim response curve type. The way dynamic differs from a standard aim curve is that dynamic applies an inverse S curve to your right stick. This is going to provide more fine control and be easier to make those micro adjustments, but it still allows you to do really fast turns on larger stick inputs. So this is useful for both movement and snapping to targets, but also being precise. Linear is the third option, and still a good choice because of its consistent and predictable aiming input, but you're going to struggle to make those fast movements when you need to. So in summary, dynamic is probably by far your best chance. One final setting I want to cover that really matters for our aim is going to be our dead zones here. And for the big one here is going to be our right stick minimum. The general rule of thumb is we want this number to go as low as possible without getting stick drift. So I play on 2, and if you look at my center dot, even though I'm not touching my controller, nothing's moving. If your controller is doing something like this, where you're just kind of always moving despite not touching, that's not necessarily a good thing. Now, if it's super subtle, if it's something like as slow as this, not going to be a huge deal. But if it's always moving quite a lot, what we're going to want to do is you're going to want to increase that right stick minimum until it stops doing that. But if you start to get to like well above 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and above, and you're still having drift, it's probably worthwhile for you to try to invest in a new controller. But general rule of thumb, anywhere between 2 and 5 is going to be a really good place to be. Now, obviously, there are a lot of other settings here, but I have a complete dedicated controller and mouse and keyboard settings video. So if you need those, I recommend you go check that out and then come back and pick up on this video when you're done. Now let's get into how to actually improve our aim. And by the way, if you're finding the video helpful so far and you're new here, do me a favor, drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on videos like this. So to improve our aim, we're gonna go through a progression of the aiming process. And let's first start with centering, which happens before we even pull the trigger or really aim at anyone. Centering involves aiming your center dot in areas where enemies are most likely to occur. This way, all you have to do is aim and start shooting when those enemies pop out from there, instead of having to correct your aim and then start shooting. To help with this, if we go to our interface settings and then gameplay HUD and down to crosshair, hit the show more and make sure your crosshair dot is on. Turn the center dot to larger or largest, completely preference, and then change your crosshair color to something that's going to be very visible and pop for you. I like to do green, but I think pink or purple would also be good, but whatever color stands out to you. So step one for good centering is to simply, when we are running around, is to keep our center dot at roughly chest level of where enemies would be here. A lot of kind of newer players, they tend to run around and they're always looking at the ground, mainly because in Warzone they're trying to find loot and things like that. So we want to make sure that we are running around with that center dot up and nice and high at chest level. Now from there we can use different information like minimap pings or gunshots, audio cues, anything like that to have our center dot in an area where we think enemies might be. So let's say, for example, I'm hearing maybe audio to the left side of in here. As I come in here, we want to keep that center dot nice and tight and really hug that corner as I come around here. That way, if an enemy's in here, I'm already there and I'm one step closer, instead of if I were to come around and not really be looking that direction, I then have to correct my aim. Same if I'm going up a stair set. If I'm going up here, there's no point in me keeping my aim right here. Instead, we want to make sure we adjust it to the top of the stairs where an enemy might be. And again, as we come around corners here, we want to be very smooth and bring our crosshair around the corners as we go in so that we are ready to fire if an enemy pops out at us. Next, we need to talk about aim assist. So obviously if you're a mouse keyboard player, this is not going to apply to you. I'm sorry, so skip ahead. But aim assist at the end of the day is the controller player's greatest ally, and learning how to use that is to your best advantage. There's two types of aim assist. Number one, we have aim assist slow down. So if I'm aiming and I get near a target, my aim will slow down and kind of get sticky towards in a bubble. And that bubble starts maybe like a half a meter on the outside of that. And then you'll see that difference from slow to fast like there. So that's going to be your standard slowdown. However, there's also something called rotational aim assist, which is going to be kind of the even stronger and more broken thing at times. And so the way rotational aim assist works is that as long as I am having some left and right input on my stick, even though I'm not touching my right stick, it's going to correct my aim for me. And Harry, go ahead and walk across my screen right now. So right now I'm not moving at all. I have no input on my left stick. Because of that, you're going to see I don't gain any aim assist drag. But now I'm going to start to just barely touch my left stick and keep going left and forth, Harry. So now, because I have just a little bit of input, you can see how it's aiming for me, even though I'm not even touching the right stick. So the simple rule of thumb here is quite simple. We want to obviously always be having some input on our left stick when we're fighting to engage that rotational aim assist. Now, as we get closer here, so when I get like point blank, I'm going to get very little. When he crosses me kind of right in my face, you can see that it's a much shorter and smaller degree of aim assist. And basically what they've done this year is from about probably 5 meters and in, there is a scale that the closer I get, the less aim assist I get. And you can see again, when I'm like point blank here and I'm aiming, I get a very quick, subtle drag here. So what you have to know as the player is at these point blank ranges, you're not gonna get that drag. And that is why I've actually decided to slightly lower my sensitivity coming into Black Ops 6, is so that I can be a little bit more, have more control in these very close range fights, because you're going to lose aim assist here. So when we're fighting in close range fights, the rule of thumb is we want to always be maximum input on our left stick, because not only are we going to engage that rotational aim assist, Harry, go ahead and strafe back and forth for me, left and right. If I'm on the opposing end here and my enemy is moving like this, it's going to be harder for me to hit a moving target, obviously, versus go ahead and stand still, Harry. It's a lot easier for me to hit a target that is not moving. So close range, full input on your left stick. Now, let's talk about mid-range though here. Let's say I'm over here a little bit farther. As long as we have a little bit of input, as long as we're just not standing totally still, go ahead and start moving back and forth a little bit, Harry. I'm going to get that rotational. I don't have to be full strafing, but just a little bit. And we can even just walk forward, and going forward just a little bit will still engage that. Now, another quick thing you can do is, let's say if you're pushing into a cover in front of you, so I'm full input on the left stick forward, even though I'm not technically moving, I'm engaging that rotational aim assist because I have input on the left stick. And the same thing applies when we're at like super long ranges. Again, just don't stand completely still, just engage just a little bit of that left stick, and then you're gonna fully unlock that rotational aim assist, and it's gonna just make hitting your shots a lot easier. Now let's discuss recoil control. So controlling recoil is generally most important for long range fights, although it still certainly matters in close range as well. So every gun in Call of Duty has its own unique recoil pattern, and the vast majority of them just kind of going straight up. And you can go in the firing range and you can hit down on the D-pad to toggle down this wall, and you can just shoot your gun and don't control it, and you can see that recoil pattern. So this is the kind of meta XM4, which is one of the lowest recoil guns in the game, and you can see it goes straight up and then it starts to veer up into the right. And so to control that recoil, obviously we have to pull our right stick in the opposite. So pulling straight down at first and then slightly down into the left to counteract that. Once we know that recoil, you can pick a spot and then try to just keep it as tight as possible. Shoot the entire mag and try to perfectly find that sweet spot for controlling the recoil and keep your bullet holes as tight as possible. And the more and more you do this, you can pick more spots and just keep doing this over and over. And the goal is to keep those bullet impact spread as small as possible. So between games, or even as like a super quick warm up here, go in and put the dummies to 3 plates and just practice getting a few dummies here, and kind of, especially for your ARs, shoot those last 2 dummies especially. And this is just a great, easy way to start mastering recoil control. Currently, this XM4 build is by far the best AR in the game, mainly thanks to the buffer weight stock here, and we can make this even lower recoil by going with a compensator or ported compensator. Now, I want to quickly explain the difference between these. Ported compensator is going to help more with that initial gun kick. So most guns, when you first start to shoot, have extra kick in those first few bullets, and the ported helps more with that. Whereas the compensator just helps overall with the overall vertical recoil of the gun. But if you feel like you have good recoil control, running the suppressor is a great option, because then we're not going to ping on the minimap. After that, the vertical foregrip underbarrel is going to do the best overall for controlling recoil, and then only a few guns will have access to the buffer weight stock, but most guns do not have any stocks to help recoil. And then the only other attachment that helps recoil is going to be the recoil springs, although it is a much smaller difference compared to what the muzzle or underbarrel or buffer weight stock can do. Okay, so we've covered centering, aim assist, and recoil control, but when we're talking about fighting enemies at close range, one thing we might need to do is we need to be able to target switch at close range. So Harry, go ahead and kind of break my camera here while I'm aiming. If he does that, it's very slow for me to turn all the way around and recenter my aim. Go ahead and do that again. But if I do that and keep doing that, if I do that and I un-ADS and I go to a hip fire and then I center my aim and then I aim, it's much quicker. The reason for that is, even if my ADS sense was 1, I can turn and spin really fast versus how fast I can turn in ADS. So when you get your camera broken, or you just need to make a wide switch, make sure we are un-ADSing to correct our aim, recenter, and then aim your gun. And the same thing is going to apply at longer range. Is, let's say that Harry is behind this truck here, and there's another enemy way to the right. If I get him weak and then I kill him, but I need to flick all the way over, instead of me dragging during my aiming all the way over here, it's going to be quicker for me to down him, hit fire, and then adjust and recenter and re-ADS once I've recentered. Another tip is going to be when we can actually start to fire a little bit early or pre-fire. And there's kind of 2 different contexts to this. So number 1 is, let's say an enemy is down ahead of me and I'm hearing gunfire or audio cues of some sort, or minimap pings, and I know there's somebody around this corner. Or maybe another example would be that, let's say I peek this corner and it's like, oh crap, there's an enemy there. I get behind cover, I reset. obviously I don't want to just slowly walk out here and be an easy target for him to shoot. Instead, we want to use some movement and pre-fire with this movement. So what I can do here is I can start to shoot my gun before I ever even come around that corner here. So the key to this though is having good centering and combining it with that movement and starting to shoot the gun before I even come around the corner. Now, another thing that this can work is in close range is, Harry, stand really here close to the corner here. Let's say I'm running around and it's like, oh crap, there's a guy that's right in front of me here. And let's say my centering was way off. Let's say I'm like looking this way and it's like, oh crap, there's a guy here. What we don't want to do is you don't want to be wasteful with this, and we don't want to center, aim, shoot. We want to be as quick as possible with shooting, because as I am aiming the gun in, I can be shooting and aiming at the same time. And if I center well, I can get some of those shots to start landing as I'm aiming the gun in. So as I come around, it's, oh crap, I am starting to pull the trigger even before or even right as I'm starting to aim my gun. So just the method there, or the lesson there, is start shooting as soon as possible in those close range, because some of those hip-fire bullets are probably gonna land. Now, sometimes the opposite can apply though. So instead of wanting to shoot early, we might wanna not shoot. So let's say an enemy runs across my screen here, and maybe I would have a chance to down this enemy. So go ahead, Harry. So if I were to shoot now, I maybe only get a bullet or two on him, and now at this point, he would know I'm here, and he could come around, reach out, and kill me. But instead, let's say he runs across, so go ahead, Harry. Instead of me shooting, because I'm recognizing I'm not gonna have enough time to get enough bullets to down him before he gets cover, we wanna have some trigger discipline and get up to a point until I can line up a nice good shot when I know he doesn't have time to get to cover, line up that headshot, and then bam, get that easy kill. So do not fire at someone if it's gonna give away your position and you're not gonna be able to confidently get that kill. All right, this is future TCap because I'm editing this video. I hope I don't have to say this, but obviously if their enemy is staring at you in the face, just shoot them. This only applies when the enemy does not know you are there. Another thing that can drastically help your recoil control, and especially your long range precision aiming like sniping or just long distance fights, is a taller right analog stick. And there's two different options we can do here. So on the white controller, this is just a plain PS5 controller, and I've got what's called a Control Freak snapped on top of it. These are like 15 bucks. You can get them on Amazon and different stores, and these just pop on and off. This is the taller one, the Galaxy, I believe, or there's the one that's a little bit smaller and doesn't raise quite as high. They also offer something called precision rings, which is a foam ring that goes around the controller and it adds tension to the controller. Now, personally, I don't really like these, and I don't really know any top level players that consistently use these, but if you want to try them, I don't see anything wrong with it. Now, I don't use a Control Freak because my controller, it is built in, and the difference between these, if I hold them up kind of right next to each other at the same height here, is the tall Control Freak might be ever so slightly taller than this. Is a tall right stick for the aim controller, and these also come in different sizes of small and medium. This is a small and this is a tall on my right. Now my controller also has 4 reprogrammable back paddles, and this is going to help more with movement, but also has these digital tap mouse click triggers that I can trigger on and off. So I can go full trigger pull, or I can go back to that mouse click, and this does help a ton with shooting semi-auto guns like pistols. If you don't have a custom controller, swapping L1R1 with L2R2, or swapping your bumpers if you're on Xbox, is a really good option because you're not going to have that trigger pull, and it makes just semi-autos a little bit faster and easier to shoot. Upgrading to a custom controller like the one I use from Aim Controllers is easily one of the best investments you can make if you are serious about improving. Now I'm going to take the time to quickly explain my controller setup because I am constantly asked how I build mine on my YouTube and Twitch streams. But if you guys are interested, feel free to skip ahead. And by the way, if you want to come check out a stream, be sure to do that as well. So we're on aimcontrollers.com. They do ship to both USA and also to several areas in Europe here. And I use a PS5 controller. They have PS4 and Xbox as well. They're all relatively the same, although the PS5 does have a few extra features they offer. And then you can get pre-designed ones, or you can build your own custom one. I'm going to walk you through that here. All of these controllers are going to come with the 4 paddles, the active triggers, which are the digital tap triggers that go on and off, and then also snap panels. So the snap panels are, I can actually pop off these panels and I can change my design. So they just sent me a new like Christmas design, so that's what I'm rocking right now. Now, obviously there are a ton of different designs here. I do have my own custom TCaptainX one. Again, you can get these in snap panels and change these if you want here. The things that matter here. Digital buttons, you can actually make these buttons digital on top. I don't think this is something you really need to spend your money on. It's also 50 bucks, so unless you got the money to spend, I really wouldn't worry about it on that. I don't think it makes that big of a difference for those. Hall effects is a very valuable thing. If you are someone that you want to get a controller and never worry about having to replace it basically ever again, as long as you don't drop it and break it, Hall effects are a good way to go because you will never get stick drift with these. Now, I personally do not use Hall effects, and the only reason why is because I guess I don't wear down my controller as much. I've had this controller that I'm using for about a year now, and I have next to no stick drift, even though I'm playing on a very low dead zone. The Hall effect sensitivity will also end up being slightly different than a regular analog stick, and most people say they have to turn their sense down by, which would now be 0.1 or 0.2 on the new sense scale to get things to line up. After that, under the aim sticks here, just choose any color, it doesn't matter. And then once you can do that, you can select the different height. So again, I use a PS small left and then a PS high right, but they will send you different options and you can pop these on and off and change these if you want to do that. After that, the next important setting is going to be the grip. I would recommend getting the grip. This gives you a rubberized grip and backing, which just when your hands get sweaty, it helps a lot with that. You can make the L1, R1 smart bumpers and they make them the kind of click. Again, if you're saving money, I don't think you absolutely need to do that, but I do take the vibration motors out and that just makes a little bit the controller lighter. But if you don't mind, if you like that, you can leave those in. Now, currently at the time of this video, AIM has a huge sale going on where as long as your PS5 controller is $259 or more and your PS4 is $229 or Xbox is $229 or more, if you use my code TCaptainX, it's going to lock the price at $259. So what you would want to do is, because of the sale, is go crazy with it. Put every single possible thing on, make the controller as expensive as possible, and then use this code because this is the type of sale they're doing. The sale changes, so if you're watching this video in the future, it might be something different. You'll just have to see what it is, but my code TCaptainX will always work. And I know this does seem expensive, but AIM does come with a lifetime warranty on all of the modded parts. So if anything breaks, you just send them an email, send it back. All you have to do is pay for shipping, and they will cover any of those modded parts for the lifetime of the controller. So I've given you guys a lot of tips so far in this video and different strategies to use to help in your fights. But at some point, it does simply come down to putting the time in and practicing.
We're talking about practice, man.
And I'm going to show you guys by far the most effective method to do that and what I attribute the majority of my kind of good aim to. And this is just how we're going to start to develop that kind of hand-eye or thumb-eye coordination to be very accurate with our shots. For this to work, you do have to own the Black Ops 6 multiplayer. If you don't own it, I'll give you guys some other options, but it's just not going to be nearly as effective if you don't own the multiplayer. Go to Find a Match in Multiplayer and then go down to Private Match and click Create Private Match. From here, first, make sure you've got some classes set up here. Really use whatever guns you want. Generally, I would just say whatever guns you're going to be using in Warzone, if that's what we're training for, set up a similar class, probably overkill with maybe an AR and SMG or 2 SMGs, and we can adjust that in the future. Then under the game setup tab here, first for the mode, we're going to do free for all. For the map, we're going to start with Babylon, and Babylon is probably the best kind of small map for just a quick and simple warm up, especially for working more on close range aim or just kind of thumb-eye, hand-eye coordination in general. From there to the game rules, turn your time limit and score limit up as much or as low as you want. It's completely personal preference here if you want to set this low or not. You can turn the match start time down as well. For the health, you're going to want to do 250 for this because this is going to be more similar to a Warzone time to kill. Technically 300 is the health pool in Warzone, but the multiplayer guns generally do less damage than in multiplayer than they do in Warzone. I also like to turn the health regen up to fast. Over in team, you can turn the radar always on if you want, completely personal preference though. And then in the gameplay here, I like to turn health steal on. This provides a health siphoning effect when you're causing damage, but you can leave that off if you prefer so. And then I like to personally just leave the score streaks off so you don't have to worry about it. And then you're gonna have to scroll over to the plus sign here that's under your name. Hit the plus sign here, and we are going to add bots. And I would generally just say add the max amount, but you can turn this down if you choose. If we're just starting out, if we're kind of like not super confident in our aim, just leave this on recruit here. As you get a little bit better and more confident, you can go up to regular, but I wouldn't really recommend you'd go beyond regular, because then at hardened and veteran, the bots just have like aimbot practically. The main difference from recruit to regular is that the bots move around a lot more. So regular is going to be a better, a little bit more realistic situation. So personally, I do regular, but start with recruit if you're not sure. When you think about practicing, if you practice for the worst case scenario or practice for things that are harder than what the real game situation would be like, it should make the game easy, right? So with this concept in mind, that's exactly what we're gonna do. To do that, we're actually gonna go into our settings, and then we are going to turn our aim assist off. Turn that off. You also can set this to a favorite here, and then once you do that, you can have it in your quick settings, and it's much easier to get to. So from here, you're gonna do one of three things. Number one is you can just go in and kill as many bots as you want without aim assist, and you're gonna struggle at first, and that's okay. Not having aim assist is gonna make you realize how much harder it is to aim without it, but it's gonna teach you to develop more of a finer control of your right analog stick when that aim assist isn't there to help you. Like we talked about earlier with strafing, how we always want to have that left input. This is the second thing I want you to focus on, and just to always be max strafing, always be max input on that left stick when we are shooting during this drill, even without aim assist. And if we do this repeatedly and we're always focused on this, it's gonna start to become a muscle memory habit. And then once we turn that aim assist back on, we're gonna really feel that rotational aim assist kick in. And then number three, and this one's a little bit more optional and maybe slightly more advanced for some people, but another rule I like to add when I'm doing this is that I have to use some sort of movement before I get a kill. So that may mean I have to slide cancel, I have to dive, jump shot, drop shot. I have to do something movement-wise before every kill. And that just starts to help you develop a better kind of feel for how to utilize these. And again, develop that muscle memory of how to execute those very easily. Now, if you're just looking for like a quick and easy warm-up, I will personally normally do about 50 bots without aim assist. However, if you really want to improve and you really want to see results, the more the better. When I first made the switch from a mouse and keyboard player to controller back at the end of Warzone 1, I was doing like 500 to 1,000 bots per day without aim assist for the first several weeks. And my aim quickly went from very bad to, I would say, elite in the matter of a few weeks to months because of this routine. Now, before you end though, make sure that you turn your aim assist back on and then kill at least like a quarter to a half to even the same amount of bots that you killed with aim assist. Once we do this, you're gonna really feel that rotational aim assist kick in, especially as we're mixing in that strafing and using our movement as well. So again, for just a quick, super easy warm-up, I would do 50 bots without aim assist and 25 with. And that's like my 5 to 10 minute warm-up before playing. But if I want more of like a dedicated practice session, I would do 250 bots without aim assist and then about 100 with. Now, that style of training will mostly focus on your close range aim, but it will absolutely still transfer over to helping with your long range aim. However, if you really want to focus on long range aim more, we just need to change the map and do some more longer engagements. Everything else stays the same. You'll have to play around with the maps here, and they're also constantly adding to this. I would say Rewind and Scud would be probably some of the best maps to do for this in terms of more long range, or if you want to work on sniping. So we can take the exact same concept, do the same no aim assist, and either Scud or Rewind are going to be really good if you want to specifically work on those. Now, generally speaking, most people will benefit the most from just doing the smaller maps like Babylon or maybe a Nuketown, and that's going to be more just focusing with SMGs and maybe ARs, but it's still a good idea to change it up every now and again. Work on ARs or snipers on the bigger maps. If you're feeling frustrated with your level of accuracy and you feel like you are wanting to improve or that you're not improving, you need to be doing this routine every single time before you play. And the more time you dedicate to this, the faster your aim will improve. I am constantly asked questions like, how do I get my aim like yours? The answer is simple. You got to put the time in if it means that much to you. Steph Curry didn't become the greatest three-point shooter of all time simply because he was talented. He also probably practiced his three-point shot more than anyone else. I'm not saying I'm the Steph Curry of Call of Duty, but I am someone who probably is moderately talented, but has put in a lot of work to get my skill to where it is. One extra option if you want to get even more of a real game type situation and really elevate your aim and movement and just fights in general is to use these private matches and 1v1 your friends as a warm-up. So let's say you and the boys are getting on and maybe you're going to play ranked, jump into a free-for-all private match, take just 5 to 10 minutes to 1v1 each other, especially without aim assist. And I'm telling you, this will help you massively. Anytime I've taken the time to do this and going into those games, my shots feel amazing. I have some of my best games.
Fuck it.
Harry, why can't you hit your shots? Harry, what's happening?
Oh, I was gonna send text myself.
This is going in the video, Harry. Say hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Now, if you don't have multiplayer, what can you do? Unfortunately, there isn't a mode where you can get a ton of practice in that is anywhere as efficient as the private match with bots method in multiplayer. The reason that works so well is because we can get like 50 kills in 5 minutes, whereas in a game of Plunder, you might get like 30 gunfights at most in a 20-minute match. But if you're limited, I would say Plunder or any respawn-based Warzone mode that they have in is going to be a decent option because you'll get more reps in that than you would in Battle Royale or even in a Resurgence mode. You can still try to practice without aim assist, but just remember, it's going to be really hard to do this against real players. Oh, you're taking me to the same spot, Harry. Not the same spot. No, no. Obviously, aim is only one component of the game, and there's other things like game sense and movement and more that are just as important, if not more important. So if you're looking to improve your game sense, I've got several videos that you can find under my Warzone tips playlist, and I'm also going to have a Warzone movement guide coming soon, and I already have an older movement guide tips for multiplayer that will apply to Warzone as well. And then of course, I've got a full controller, mouse and keyboard, and graphic settings video on the channel if you need help with those as well. But guys, if you found the video helpful, please help support the channel by leaving a like, subscribing, and dropping a comment as well. Also, feel free to come check out a stream here on YouTube or on Twitch, whichever you prefer to watch on. But thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.